Okay, looks like people have kind of evened out here as far as signing in. So I'm going to go ahead and get things started. First of all, hello, everyone. Welcome to our public meeting reviewing the features of our Southwest Park Master Plan. My name is John Whitmore. I'm a manager with the Denton Parks and Recreation Department, and I'll be leading us off with some ground rules and some introductions of our speakers this evening. Well, first off, you can ask questions anytime using the Q&A button at the very bottom of your screen. You can see that in the diagram right there. We may not be able to get to your question in the middle of the presentation. However, your questions will be monitored, and one of us that are not speaking may be able to respond in text. Once the presentation is over, we'll be able to answer the remaining Q&A questions. At this point, we may also open the group up for verbal questions. So please use the Zoom hand raising feature when we get to that point, and we'll answer the questions in order that they're received. Okay, now I have a few introductions. This is the team from the Parks and Recreation Department that are leading the master plan effort. So Gary Packin, our director, Drew Huffman, one of our assistant directors, myself, and Maria Dennison in our marketing area in public information office. Okay, and this is a list of all our volunteer focus group members that have attended previous focus group meetings and provided the feedback to our consultant team. This group's contribution has been invaluable in getting us master plan to what you're going to be seeing tonight. Now I'd like to turn this over to meeting to Bill Smith from our consultant team, who's going to introduce his folks.
Thank you, John. My name is Bill Smith. I'm the Director of Landscape Architecture for Teague, Nolan, Perkins in Denton and Fort Worth. And I'm a landscape architect. And Mick Massey is with Barker, Rinker, Seacat. Mick is also a landscape architect and a former Parks and Recreation Director. Dr. Joe Walker, I don't know if Dr. Walker is with us tonight, but Dr. Walker, we were lucky to have him. He's an esteemed colleague, is with UNT and widely respected throughout our industry. So just a little bit of timeline and background. We started this last summer, this process, and the first part was a fact-finding kind of information gathering phase. That was phase one, site analysis, needs, and programming. And then phase two was an illustrative master plan. And that's where we are now. Here we are at the end of March, and we're just wrapping up here, or actually April now. So we're just wrapping up, and we'll go to council next week. So just an overview of the project. This is the site here, this green rectangle. This is I-35 West over here. This is 377. Downtown Denton is about 2 miles to the northeast here, up off the screen. This is the future Hunter Cole Ranch area over here. That's Pilot Knob. You drive by that hill on 35, that's Pilot Knob there. And you notice there is an assortment of green blobs around the site. Those are protected forest areas that are within walking distance of the site. Additionally, and I'll go, you see these little purple dots, these are all connected future trail systems. So Hickory Creek will have trails coming up yet that will connect to our park and through all these future neighborhoods. I'll go to the next slide here. And this is a blow up of the last slide. So what you're seeing again, there's the site. This is a new subdivision being planned south of our site. This is a new subdivision being planned north of the site. That's the Denton Fire Training Station. This is Bonnie Bray and the edge of the city. In the future, there will be a connection from Brush Creek Road that will go along here, along the backside of this subdivision, connect to Allred, and Allred will then have a connection to I-35. So that means of the 4 roads around the park, we think this one will be the south, Allred will be the busiest. And we proposed a road to go along this west side because it's much easier to manage a park. It's safer. If you have more eyes on the park, people can drive by and see it. It's more accessible. So for that reason, we proposed, and it works well, I think, with what Hunter Ranch is also doing. These other 3 roads, this one's existing, Allred's existing, although it's unpaved. This one's proposed and being built as we speak. Again, you can see the purple dots, so there's kind of these magenta colors. Those are future trails. They'll connect to Hunter Ranch, all up and down Bonnie Bray and down Hickory Creek, and also the subdivision to the south. So what we did in phase one was that we did a lot of polling of the public, and we're going to talk about that now. Mick, feel free to kick in at any time. So what we wanted was a balanced approach. We didn't want to get all our data from one place because then that might skew it. So the first part, we had Denton focus groups, public input, surveys, and Denton Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan, which is ongoing. We also looked at best practices. What do we know that works in the industry from doing, park systems and parks throughout the decades? What works? And then also balancing that with executive input from the Parks Department, Park and Recreation Board, and the volunteer focus group. You just saw that list a moment ago. So all those things, we find it's safer and more accurate to do a balanced approach. So the data collection included 1,200 general resident responses and online preference surveys. It's part of the master plan, the park system master plan. We had 2 public input meetings where people responded online and ranked in an order of importance the things they wanted to see go in the park. And then we had 2 focus group meetings where focus group members who represent different parts of the community also ranked different program items that might go into the park. And then we had emails, phone calls, face-to-face discussions with citizens throughout. So we were really trying to hoover up as much data as we could in this so we could get a broad representation of the city. So the way that took out in the data collection from the focus group and public input, the number one, and this is no surprise, the number one preferred program item was hike and bike trails. We find this is common in any city. The hike and bike trails are always by quite a bit the most popular item for a park. Playgrounds, again, no surprise. Restrooms, open space and picnic was number 4. Forest was number 5. Not all cities want that, but Denton expressed a desire for forest. Outdoor fitness, small amphitheater, athletic fields, multi-use pavilions, and outdoor learning and adventure. So from best practices, and this doesn't exactly mirror that, but it's close: hike and bike trails, playgrounds, restrooms, athletic fields, forest, open space and picnic, outdoor fitness, small amphitheater, outdoor learning and adventure, and a dog park. And then executive input from the Parks and Rec board and the focus group: hike and bike trails, again, number 1, forest, open space picnic, restrooms, outdoor learning, outdoor fitness, multi-use pavilion, small amphitheater, athletic fields, dog parks. So a lot of these 8 or 9 of these are all common to all of them. They're in a little different order, but that's really good that we had consistency across these different means of input. Mick, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, you just said what I was about to say, that it was good news that there was a lot of commonality, just a different number of priorities, and it taught us what were the big elements that needed to go into the master plan. So it was very confirming.
So I'm letting Mick talk about the indoor now.
So I represent Barker Rinker Seacat Architecture. We're a firm that's based in Denver and in Dallas, and we focus on recreation architecture. We don't do schools or multi-use. We don't do high rises. We focus on recreation architecture, and the reason we do that is because it brings us the most amount of joy to put together a building that's going to make the most impact in people's lives. So we've done over 250 recreation centers in the United States. Not one of them is like the other one. They're each customized to fit the community. So it's very important to us to identify what the indoor needs for recreation are in Denton. And you have a large system there, so there's going to be a lot of needs. But we're looking to balance the needs across the entire system. And this park, over 200 acres in size, is a candidate for a possible indoor recreation facility. So we wanted to know what was the appetite of the public. And so we got some input about a multi-generational recreation center. If you think about multi-generational, what that means is that it may be very, very busy recreation center in the morning, full of seniors, walking, jogging on the walk track, maybe, for example, in the fitness areas, social areas, classrooms, and so on. About 2 or 3 o'clock, a lot of the seniors will go home. And so what happens time of day is kids get out of school, building repopulates with a different age group. And then in the evening, usually full of families or single adults that were working all day, and they come to the recreation center as well. So multi-generational approach seemed to resonate with Denton residents. And in there, some of the bigger elements are the indoor walk jog track. No surprise there that we find that to be common a lot. Patios and outdoor spaces ranked number 2. We saw fitness, and then senior programming, really trying to take care of the seniors in Denton. Because it is such a large population, there's probably needs that on the south side that this building could certainly come into play. And then gymnasium needs. You have a deficit of gymnasium space in the city right now. And so we know that if we build some gymnasium and sport courts, that we're going to be filling those up with Denton residents. And then an indoor playground. And why that's important is it's not always light outside. It's not always cool. And having a destination in the community, it can be very, very important, especially for seniors, because we've never seen a time in the United States where seniors are more actively involved in their grandparents' lives, either through primary caregiving or through just child watch. And so that can be an inhibitor for seniors to go out and have some quality of life. So having that indoor playground can be very, very important for seniors as well as for kids. And then when you have a nice indoor playground, it's not uncommon to have party rooms. Party rooms usually tend to be the most highest revenue generating space within a recreation center. And so that can be very important to the bottom line, as we're trying to be good stewards of the financial aspects of these buildings as well. So indoor aquatics ranked number 2, and that could include a lap pool, could include leisure water. And Texans love water, so it made sense that the public, it was on their mind. So that can also help support party rooms for birthday parties and whatnot. So number 2 being indoor aquatics. And then I was really, really proud that the public put a value on park maintenance facility. Having been a parks director myself, it is a huge responsibility to take care of massive amounts of acreage all over a community. And you want to do that as efficiently and deliver that as best you can. But to have a park maintenance facility on the south side of Denton, it's very likely that it needs to be in a larger community such as this. And so for that to be on the public's mind and say, yeah, we value this, it just shows the quality of the folks in Denton that want to contribute to the overall good of the community. So that was great news. If you look at what best practices are, you would see that a multi-generational rec center would also be on that list. But then there's some items that likely needed to be put on there, such as classrooms, art rooms, and then an events hall. The reason an events hall is particularly important is because many times we find that there are needs for large gathering. And there's a fantastic opportunity to gather at the Civic Center in Denton, but sometimes just closer to neighborhoods, it makes sense. So we're talking about an events hall that might be 240 people, for example. And then we saw, of course, indoor aquatics, park maintenance facility, and then the idea of this possible field house. Remember early on when I was talking about we really want to balance the needs of indoor recreation across the entire city. Now, Denton is reaching a magnitude of size and population that a field house could be very much a part of the consideration. And by a field house, we mean it's a large space that's dedicated towards athletics. And that can mean court sports, such as an example in North Texas might be the Plano Sports Authority. They have 4 of those located in that part of the world over to our east. Let's see, Frisco has Fieldhouse USA and so does Mansfield and Grapevine. But the idea is that there's likely a need in the Denton area, and this could very well draw from outside of Denton as well, just like the others do. So a very high possibility that might make the list under the best practices. Then, of course, we got the executive input, again, from the Parks and Recreation Department, the Parks and Recreation Board, and focus groups, such as the advisory committee that we had heard from as well. And they ranked these elements very, very close to the others. So again, as Bill mentioned earlier, it's fantastic that the lists are very similar. It's just maybe a slight different priority on which one's one or two. But the idea is, could this all fit into this 200 acres that we're calling Southwest Park? And the good news is we found it can. So if we plan for the future, not knowing exactly when that elements might happen, at least we know we can fit them in. And then we can work through time and budgets and priorities as time allows. So that's the idea behind this entire master plan, is to consider all the big elements that might need to be accommodated so we don't put things in the way. We plan for the future. We look to utilities. We look to traffic planning. We look to good planning practices so this park can be successful immediately and then way down the road as funding and time allows. Rome wasn't built in a day, and this park will not be built in a day. And so we really wanted to plan our work and then work our plan. It does mention adjacent outdoor activities. And I want to just point out, on indoor recreation, some of the best facilities are designed with an inside out and an outside in approach. And what that means is that if your recreation center is full of light and open and sees long vistas into the park, that feels good, especially when you're in that walking track or that fitness. But if there are activities adjacent to the recreation center, such as group fitness, things like boot camps and CrossFit, that can be adjacent to the building, they can benefit from locker rooms and coming inside and gathering first, getting water, and then taking off into the park. Spray grounds, things like that, playgrounds that are outside. So we're looking at adjacent outdoor activities that complement that indoor and make it a part of this entire park. So that's my part of this slide. Bill, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Mick. So the comparative analysis and master plan concept, let's get into that. This is going to show, we're going to show is the 3 or 4 examples of other parks, so you can get an idea of scale. How big is it? Is our site is 200 acres. This first one, North Lakes Park, which is almost double, is 400 acres. Our site is about half this size, but you can see how they have a mix of active uses like baseball and softball fields, as well as more passive uses like trails and forest and things like lakes. So that is one example there. And then the next one is Town Lake in McKinney. It's almost exactly our size, 205 acres. Again, it's a mixed use. We find that with a lot of these large parks that a diversity of uses works well. It helps them balance out. So there's something for everyone there. And you can see this one is mostly natural at this point, but it does have some active area for parking. Again, almost identical to our size site. This was about half our size. This is Webb Community Park in Arlington, not fully built out yet, but there's a rec center, parking, and future development to come down here, and a really nice rec center here. Veterans Park in College Station, 150 acres. This is more of an active park with a lot of fields, sports fields, almost entirely sports fields. So you can see what that looks like. You can see the large multi-complex softball there. And then this is Oak Grove Park in Grapevine, a really nice baseball softball complex. And it's very popular. It works really well for that. And it's about a total of 300 acres, but this part here is probably 150, 200. So we went, then from there, we went, okay, there's our site, our 200 acre rectangular site there. And so we developed a series of what we call bubble plans. And the reason we do these is it forces you not to be too specific. You're just thinking about the big pieces. And like Mick said, trying to get all the big pieces onto the site. So let me talk about what that is. The red pieces you see are all buildings, okay? The bright green is the baseball softball complex. Purple is parking on all of them, is consistent. And then green, this chartreuse color, is open space. And the darker green is forest. So on this concept A here is the first one we did. There's all red there. There's Bonnie Bray. There's Cambridge Brook, and there's that proposed road we talked about with Hunter Ranch on the west side here. Because all red is the busiest, you'll notice on all three of these concepts, we kept the rec center on this. And that was to limit traffic flow through these other neighborhoods, because these will be high traffic generators. We wanted to have the rec center here where it'd be easy access to the interstate. So that's why that's there. So on this one, we put it on the southwest corner. There's an open space lawn, so you have some views down this lawn. We put the baseball softball complex out here. There is on the side, by the way, I just want to let you know, there's a little ephemeral, what's called an ephemeral stream. That's a stream that doesn't flow all year long. It's dry a good part of the year, particularly in the summer, but it's the natural drainage channel for the site. We wanted to keep that. And there's a couple of existing cow ponds there that were dug for cattle to drink. And so we plan on keeping and enhancing those. Over here, there's some more parking here, forested area. So this one, the big pieces to keep in mind are the baseball softball complex is on the north, and the rec center is here on the southwest corner. Concept B, this all has the same elements, they're just rearranged differently. We tried to get the north area here, the north part, to be more natural and open space. And the rec center here is on the southeast corner. The baseball softball complex is here. And parking there. So that's how that works. And then finally on concept C, we got back and put the rec center on the southwest corner. The baseball softball complex is on the southeast corner. And then it shares parking with this open space, which works really well. And then also, just like concept A, we have these views down this lawn. We've got the views down this lawn here. So that's really, because you can imagine, say you're working on a stationary bike in the rec center, you have these views down this lawn and maybe a quarter mile down to what might be another pavilion here to terminate that view. So this one started to shape up as the one that met the needs the best. And it also had, we could have this big natural area up here on the north side. And so after looking at it, we've really felt like concept C was starting to make more sense. So then we went and took it to the next level. And that's where we started to actually develop a plan. I'm going to show you that. And we'll spend some time. We'll come back to this too. So don't worry if we go too fast, because we'll come back to it here. Let's see here. Sorry, there we go. Okay. So here's the master plan. You can see how this is really concept C, just fleshed out a little more. This is the more natural area on the north, and we'll get into that. This is the more active area here on the south with a baseball softball complex. And there's the indoor area here with the rec center here and this lawn you look down. So it starts to, what you start to see is we have these axes where you have this view down this lawn. You got another axis through the center of this baseball softball complex across this redeveloped cow pond. Now it becomes a nice little natural pond to some pavilions across. And then a big blackland prairie. 150 years ago, this area was mostly blackland prairie. A lot of that's gone now. And so what does that look like? That looks like this picture here on the left. And I've got a PDF I'm gonna go to. If you'll just excuse me for a moment, we'll spend some time on this. Hang on, sorry, just a moment. Technical difficulties. Okay, stand by, please. I've got a little latency, apologize. You'll see here in just a moment. Okay. I'm going to stop share and reshare here. Okay. Sorry for the pause, but I wanted to show you, this is a PDF. It'll be higher resolution than what we had before. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. So this is the plan overall, and you'll see this restored Blackland Prairie up here. So what does that look like? That looks like this right now in the spring. This is what Texas looked like for thousands and maybe millions of years before everything was developed.
Hey,
so,
Bill, can I jump in there for
please.
a second? Doing a master plan like this is very, very good idea. It's important, and so that we know how to manage this land. I just want to manage expectations by those listening that we want to see some Blackland Prairie come in. It takes a long time. It took eons for it to develop, and then It didn't take
Okay.
long to destroy it. It's going to take a while to get it back restored again. And that puts a ton of pressure on guys like Drew and John from the Parks and Recreation Department. I just want to make sure everyone listening knows that that's the intention, and that'll help them, that'll inform them about how they make decisions about mowing, about how they do pest management, that sort of thing. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while. But I think if everybody understands that and they're patient, then we'll get there. We'll get there one day, and then we'll all get to enjoy that. Also, these wildflowers like that, they bloom certain times of year, and then the rest of the time of the year they're going to seed head, and so they're going to drop their seeds and they're going to maybe look kind of rough, and that's just part of it. A lot of people might have a different expectation about that, but just putting that seed in everyone's head that this is going to take some time. Thanks, Bill. Sorry to jump
That's a
in there.
really good point, Mick. And I think we talked to the folks who expect years and decades,
Yeah.
not weeks and months,
Right.
years and decades. Thank you. That's very good. So, all right, let me go back here. So you can see this great lawn here. You can see the scale. It's about a 1/4 mile from here to here. Okay. So to give you an idea of the scale. And
that's really important too, because of people are going to want to gather. They're going to want to gather in small groups. They're going to want to gather in large groups at times. This gives a lot of flexibility, that great lawn. And if you look at the way the parking is laid out, it's smart to put parking that's going to serve dual purposes,
yes,
as opposed to just one purpose. And
serving here and here. Yes.
I think that's where you were going, Bill, that athletics is going to require a lot of parking, but so could the great lawn, and maybe at different times. But the idea is to try to get it served, right?
Yes, yeah, and saves cost. So getting dual use out of the parking, saving the city money too. Because if this was only for the baseball, softball complex, it'd only be used when that's being used. And being that it's used for both of these can be used all year round. So here's the rec center. We'll talk some more about that with an outdoor spray ground and an inclusive playground here. There's a dog park located here on the corner. We think this will be very popular.
And that's what, cities are put together in big planning modes. There's a retail component across the street that's proposed as part of the future development. So you can imagine if you got your Starbucks or whatever boutique coffee, or maybe lunch, and you take your dog and you can go over to this park that just feels like it's got a good urban kind of suburban connection to that retail, which we think is going to be a driver and really help both the dog park and the retail. Kind of a good idea there.
You can get a
Did you want
sense
to
of the
say
scale
something?
here. These are individual lots on this Sagebrook development that's going in.
Drew,
Yeah.
you wanted to say something?
Yeah, Mick, we found out earlier this week that may or may not happen in that corner next to the dog park. So
Okay.
that'll be future discussion with the Hunter section of Hunter and Cole with it. So
And that's a very good point. This is a conceptual master plan, and things could change over time, like you just pointed out. So we all have to keep a mindset that we're going to be flexible and try to get as many of these elements to come together. So thanks for bringing that up, Drew. That's a really good timely
It
piece
will
of
change.
that.
Things will change. We can say with confidence,
Yes.
things will change.
Yeah.
This is important. This is the maintenance building. We want to locate it close to these fields so it makes it easy to maintain. And that's really important. If you want a nice park, you have to have a good maintenance facility. This is the entry here, and you can see this grand kind of entry. And so what are we talking about with that? You saw this monument sign, something like this, Chisholm Fields. It makes a real statement about entry. The pond this is about the scale of the pond we're thinking about, and with the fountain of about the scale we're thinking about. This is a pavilion, and this is about the scale of the end of the lawn. If you look down the rec center a 1/4 mile away, you'd see something like this scale or this scale to terminate that view and provide an outdoor amphitheater. This is what we mean by nature play, less structured, more naturalistic materials where kids can use their imagination. And outdoor activities, Mick talked about outdoor activities happening outside the rec center. This is a good example of that. Playgrounds, both regular and an inclusive playground is what we're talking about for that. Outdoor learning can be something that's completely outside or something that's indoor outdoor where you can use for education. And let me show you where we have that on the plan. We have both here, outdoor learning pavilion here, here, and could even be part of the rec center also there. So
Bill, can you show the soccer football fields?
yeah. Yeah, there's the soccer 3 full-size fields here. Could also be used for overflow parking if you so choose. There's a gas easement here. You can't see those dashed lines. You can't see it at all, in fact. But there's a gas easement that goes through that. So we located that here. So if you did have a big event, say 4th of July, some here on the lawn, you could once or twice a year use this as overflow parking if you decide to. Then behind this, again, one of the things we're trying to do here is get as many kind of different things. The special event garden here, small, maybe formal garden behind this great pavilion. The city can rent out for weddings or graduations or whatever. And we're thinking something like this is what we're thinking for special event gardens, something more this scale, where it could be more like, I think John said earlier, botanical garden. This might be a more highly maintained space where there's things in bloom, where people want to rent it because it's really pretty. And then we talk about trails. We have both paved and unpaved. And on the plan, we've indicated the paved trail is orange. And you'll see, first thing to notice, there's a 2-mile, almost exactly 2-mile loop that goes all the way around the park here. And then these little white dashes, those are intended to be unpaved. We have both of those. And then the dog park, this is the one in Grapevine where you have the synthetic turf. Is very popular. They have both synthetic turf and regular grass. And the synthetic turf proved to be a lot more popular with the owners, at least. The dogs don't really get a vote. And in baseball, softball here, and you know what that can look like. Let me just go through some more elements of the plan, and we can come back to it later. Again, there's the maintenance, but then we snuck in a couple little small parking lots here for the baseball, softball complex, where you might, if this is phased, for instance, you might build these 4 fields first, and you can build these other fields outside of it. Right now, these are envisioned as synthetic turf, but they, of course, could be synthetic turf or natural turf, depending on what you want. With a big concession stand here and a big entry, we've opened up the parking lot here, so there's a big entry or sense of arrival here with ticketing here so you can control access. So we have 4 large fields and 7 smaller fields for this on the eventual build out. Again, that might take you years or decades, but you can kind of plan it at your own pace. And then you can see this axis, it's a playground, so you have something to do for other kids. This axis goes through the park, and then this pond here, there'd be a fountain with a pavilion to terminate the view across there, some docks. You can do fishing if you want. And then this forested area, we're going to reforest this area around this ephemeral stream. So as you come to the north, it becomes more natural. And, at least half the park is more natural, and that was by design. There's the forest play areas. We'll see some images of these in a moment. The restored Blackland Prairie, Post Oak Savannah, and parking and outdoor learning pavilion here. So it meanders up to this other neighborhood.
Bill,
And
can I talk a little bit about
Please.
forestation, or Drew, do you want to go first?
yeah, I was just going to ask if Bill wanted to talk about how these trees that we see on this plan are not here today.
They are not there.
Right.
Yes, thank you. That's very important. Right now, today, we have, and ecologists, when they look at this, they will tell you this is a disturbed site. That means it's a way of saying it's not virgin land. It was not like it was 150 years ago. It's been disturbed. And it became pasture land like most of North Texas. So that means the Blackland Prairie was tilled up, or it was overgrazed. And so you get things like mesquite. We see a lot of mesquite there today. We see a lot of junipers, and that's all an example, all a sign that it was overgrazed at some point. So we talk about restoration, we're talking about a process to go back in time to restore it to what it once was. And that takes time. So eventually the mesquite and the thorny trees that are there will be replaced with things like post oaks, blackjack oaks, chinkapin oaks, and the prairie grass, as you saw. And that takes time. It's gonna take some time. But those trees, and ecologists call it climax species, a species that once a ecosystem gets to a steady state and it just kind of self-perpetuates, that's the climax state. For North Texas, that was Blackland Prairie and Post Oak Savannah. So that's going to take some time to restore that, but that's what we're talking about. So we'll probably, you'll probably decide to keep the mesquite trees for a while and gradually plant small oak trees. And once the oak trees get large enough, Skeets will start dying off anyway, and you'll just kind of cut those down when they're at the end of their life, and it'll be kind of a gradual transition. Did that answer your question, Drew? Is that?
Yes, sir.
So again, think long-term process. Now for us, 10, 20 years is a long time, but for a park and for a tree, it's a very short time. All right, I'm going to go then to the next page here. And this just looks at the north side and a little bit more, and then you see that gas easement there, the axis that comes through. There's the south side. Again, outdoor spray ground, the inclusive playground, which might become quite a bit larger there. It's nice because it's connected to the rec center. You can have bathrooms and things associated with that. And if the weather's bad, kids can get inside. And then I'm gonna let Nick talk about this particular slide here.
So we talked a little bit earlier about some of the bigger elements, such as you see the upper picture on the left, the gym field house. You can kind of see that's multiple courts indoors, and you know that what the value of that brings to a community. Aerobics and dance studios can be used for lots of things, including spin and others. But the idea that we're seeing more and more is that indoor-outdoor connection. This particular image happens to be a project we did in downtown Denver that was on a floor that you could see out, and people there in their climate, they could enjoy that door open quite a bit. We would want to keep our climate in mind here, but that idea of indoor-outdoor connection. And then the next one you see is indoor walk jog track. This is popular with just about every generation. It's going to be a big component, I believe, of your community to have a really robust indoor walk jog track. I think it's a good decision on the public's part that they put a high priority on it. Looking at this is just an example of an indoor playground. This one happens to be in Grapevine, Texas, just down the road from you all. They chose a theme that was sort of fitting with planes, trains, and automobiles, which happens to be Grapevine. I would imagine that Denton could theme the entire recreation center. Lots of things come to mind about Denton. So the imagination will probably take us to what it needs to be themed as.
Music is one thing.
Yeah, music. It could be the birds, butterflies, and bees. There's just so much in Denton that love of nature. Who knows where this could go? Then you see adult fitness. One of the common things we find in adult fitness is lots of air movement, lots of light, and lots of headspace. If you look at this picture, one thing that's going to change about every 3 years is that equipment. And so we're finding equipment isn't getting smaller, it's getting bigger, and it's getting more technical. And so each piece of equipment is likely going to need its own internet connection and power. And what also is visible in this photograph is stretching space. And this is space that you can get off of a machine or on a machine and still stretch. And so adult fitness has evolved over time, and you can also see strength training in this image as well. Moving over, and the next is an adult lounge. We're seeing senior centers and senior activities where there are seniors, we call them, and there are junior seniors. And junior seniors tend to be a little more active, and seniors tend to be a little more social. Cards and things like that, knitting classes, that sort of thing. So we're imagining this recreation center is going to likely take care of both. And so, but an adult lounge is definitely part of the future in there. So, and then an outdoor spray ground is planned for in the master plan. We'll see how that goes over time. And it's just adjacent to the recreation center, as well as indoor aquatics. This happens to be an image of leisure water. Another component that we've heard from you all is lap swim, and this is not necessarily competition swim, but lap swim is more about exercise and fitness. And so we're seeing a lot of that kind of water come into these recreation centers. And then adjacency to outdoor space. We know that there's a need for an indoor event space, but having an outdoor events option usually pays off very, very well. as part of the consideration. So that's kind of a glance at some of the indoor components. And then again, I just want to remind everybody, this is a exercise in patience as we look at, there's a lot of elements on this park that are going to be competing for funding. And so we want to give good feedback about where the priorities are, so that as funding becomes available, staff and council and park board, they know where to put their resources to make these elements come together. So it starts with the master plan. And that's what you have here. This is the final draft that we're ready to take to the city council next week. But this is our opportunity to hear you all, to see, did we hear you right? Are we representing this correctly? Do we, what is it that you are excited about? What is it that you would like to see different? So emails, type it up in the chat area. I really recommend typing it up in the chat area, because then we have it in record form. So Bill, back to you on some exciting 3D looking
Can y'all
graphics.
see the perspectives?
Yes.
Okay. So these are some images. This is in the baseball softball complex looking northwest. And this is a playground, because, when you have a baseball softball complex, not every child, younger children need to play, or they get bored. They're all day for a tournament. Is Drew and other people I know who do this. When you go all day. So it's important to have other things to do when for the kids that are not on the field, and even for the kids that are when they're not playing a game. This is the dog park. We're looking towards the rec center now. We have not designed this building, okay? So don't think this is what you're building. This is simply about the size of what we think it might look like. It might be a 2 or 3 story, so it might be similar in scale, but it might not look anything like that, but it's about the right size is all we can say at this point, if you decide to build it all out. And the dog park will have different paddocks, so that for maintenance, so you have 2 open and 2 being cleaned at any given time. This is the amphitheater, and looking back towards the rec center, and that's that 1/4 mile view. You can see over here, let me get my laser pointer back. You can see the pond over here. You can see the baseball softball complex over there to the left, and that's the rec center. And you can get, several thousand people on this lawn for 4th of July if you want, for a big event. Or it can be smaller. And on the back side of this, I don't have a view of it, that's where that small formal garden is that you have for special events. And there's the pond there, the little pond. The thing we were just looking at was right here. There's those group of people, and that last view was looking down this way to the rec center you see there. And you see the baseball softball complex here. That axis comes through the park, through here, and the Blackland Prairie be bad down here off screen to our right. So that's the pond there with a very naturalistic shelf from a plant growth and fish. And then the next one. This is the Blackland Prairie here restored. This is a scale of what that space looks like. This is the forested edge. The ephemeral stream would be in here somewhere. You can see the natural play area here at the edge of the prairie. And this is as Mick mentioned, the prairie, and it goes through seasons. That's part of it. This is it in springtime. In the summer, it's going to get kind of brown and crunchy. That's an acquired taste. I like it, but it's part of the natural life cycle. It has to go to seed in order to propagate itself. So when we're telling people how to maintain this, you really want to mow it about twice a year. Once in August or September, after it's gotten dry and rattly and gone to seed, you mow it and let those seeds scatter. Then you might mow it again in February, so one time. So you want to you encourage that natural process.
So by having a master plan like this, it informs, it's a decision that, we're dedicating ourselves towards like Blackland Prairie restoration and reforestation with indigenous hardwoods. That informs the staff and future leaders of, we're committed to these things. That means it may not get mowed. It may get mowed and then baled, where that biomass, that leftover grass isn't left to just simply sit on that prairie. That did not happen in the old prairies, it would burn. And so we can't burn, but we can remove part of that biomass. And a lot of times it's baled and taken away and used for other purposes. So the point is that it informs staff and future leaders of how committed this the commitment this requires. That's important too, because it'll help Drew when he's preparing his budget to go, he'll get the right equipment, the right manpower, that sort of thing to work towards this. And it's, again, it'll take time.
And towards that, yeah, and you know, the parks, as your park systems grows, you will need more manpower and more maintenance. I know those guys are never have too many people. They always seem like they're too short. So bear in mind, and as it comes up in the future, they will need more manpower. Even though this is very low maintenance, you know, there's still things that have to be done. It has to be looked after. And you just want to point you the scale of the space. You can see that prayer, how big this park is. It's really a large park. This is an idea for the entry on the south end of the park. You can see the rec center here. The splash pad would be in this area, although it's not really shown. But a big grand entry is what we're thinking, something here over the road with a big boulevard entry. So it really is an entry that is fitting for a large citywide park.
Yeah,
And
who
then
knows?
this-
Maybe your name could be up there if you just donate like $100 million or so, you know.
Yeah, right. You too can have this park name. Yes, naming rights are. We're discussing that later tonight. This is an overall perspective looking to the northwest, and you can see the rec center there. All red would be down here below us. This is the axis that goes through the park. There's the pond. There's the great lawn there, the quarter mile from there to there. This is the soccer fields over here. This is the baseball, softball, the large fields here, smaller field here. They look bigger because they're in perspective, but those are the large fields and smaller fields around them. There's your maintenance building there. So. A little lazy here, hang on. Seems to like this slide.
It's a lot of data to try to crunch
Yeah.
and get
I'm
across
getting
the internet. So there it goes.
So this just in general, we talked about the natural area. That's about 92 acres. Nearly half the site is natural here. The active area is about 96 acres. That's what we call here the great lawn, the soccer area, the baseball, softball, and the dog park and the maintenance building all form what we call the active area. And the indoor area is about 12 acres. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to build, you know, decide to do phase one, phase two, phase three. You can a la carte this. You might decide to build, say, 4 fields here, a great lawn, an amphitheater, and soccer fields, and you got a park. Or you might decide to do, we want to do the natural area first here. Or you might decide we want to do, you know, build the rec center first. It's really up to you. We just kind of do this so we kind of generally see how the uses break down. And we're going to the next one. Okay, here we go. And there's Gary. Gary, unfortunately, could not be with us tonight. He had his shot and was feeling the effects, as some of you might. He's feeling a bit fluish tonight, but he'll be back on his feet tomorrow, the next day. But any questions or anything, you can direct them to him or to Drew or John, if you have any. And I think now we're going to open up to questions and comments. I'm going to go back to the plan. So I'm going to unshare the screen and bring the plan back up in the higher resolution that we had it. PowerPoint limits how much you can, the pixel resolution just will only go to a certain point. That's why we're going back and forth. Just give us a moment, please.
Bill, while you're doing that, a couple of people had some questions in the Q&A,
Okay.
and we've answered quite a bit of them as it goes. And I know that one person, Ermi, has a request on tennis courts, and then we're just redoing the Goldville Tennis Center, which is up in North Lakes Park. And we don't have currently another tennis center in Denton, but we used to do USTA leagues and various things out there because we had enough courts.
Okay. Sorry, Yes, so yeah, we had talked about that. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm sorry, I'm just, give me a moment.
Sure.
Hit the wrong button and here we are. Okay. So tennis, yeah, tennis courts, you can see the scale of this. A tennis court, could fit here. So there's places to do tennis in this park. Could be, here, can be over here, it can be, up here. There's lots of places. So if that is something, again, this goes back to the idea, this is a master plan. This is not a construction document. It's a guiding document. It's sort of like a plan of your vacation, where you're going to go. You might change your plan as you go, though.
And it,
So,
and excuse me, and Bill, to really tag onto that, there are other the other public meetings we've had on Southwest Master Plan. We really try to iterate that we do not have funding for this park. We had funding to master plan it. We're at this stage now, like Bill said, we're going to council soon to be able to talk to council, show them this master plan, really show them how far, we've gotten with the master plan, get their input, just like we're getting everyone's input, from our residents and our focus group, and really go from there. So really for funding, this will either come from a bond and grants, it could, we could put a plan together like we've done so far, finalize this plan, really get it to where we need to get it to be able to go after those Texas Parks and Wildlife matching grants. So if this park costs $150 million, then Texas Parks and Wildlife could pay for half of it, and then we're only paying for the other half. You could go after, there's all different types of grants other than the Texas Parks and Wildlife that we could name off, but that's one of the biggest ones that we would go after for especially a park like this and for all our other parks.
thank you, Drew.
And we just had another question about pickleball. Yes, so we're going to be doing pickleball at the North Lakes Tennis Center also. And of course, anywhere we have tennis, we're looking at putting in pickleball lines, just like we've done at Avondale and Nettie Schultz. So,
And it'll be part of the indoor program, pickleball.
Yes.
And lots of gym space for pickleball.
Yep. It's very popular. I know they play pickleball at North Lakes right now in
Right.
the indoor rec center.
Okay. What else do we have?
Do we want to open it up? I know we have a couple of questions in here. We're trying to answer them, but if we'd
Sure.
like, I can go over to the participant panel.
If anybody has a question, they can raise their hand.
Raise their hand.
Yep. And then what it does is it pops up to the very top. The first person raises their hand, then we can answer questions in sequence.
And I wanted to, while we're waiting for people to raise their hand, so I wanted to speak on a few things sustainability wise. I know Dr. Liang had a few questions about sustainability, and really we're looking at carbon sequestration, all these different things. That's why we want to do the tree planting. We want to do the Blackland Prairie. I don't know, Bill, can you move it over and show the green parking, the sustainable parking areas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We can do, we just have some small spaces on here now, really to get a footprint in and say, this is what we can do as far as permeable parking goes. We anticipate hopefully to be able to build our first green parking lot at South Lakes Park over by the small playground next to Teasley and Londonderry, where we'll have a parking lot, but you won't take away the green space. It'll still be grass. There's a special way you put a special type of grid pattern in there, put the dirt back in, plant the seed, and really you park on grass and you don't damage it, and you still have that really nice green space to be able to do that. We're putting 2 other permeable parking lots in. One's going in right now at McKenna Park, and another one hopefully will be going in at the North Lakes Tennis Center when we start construction on that this summer. But really with all that, any and all your input, we would love. I just wanted to make sure that we showed that. And I've been meeting with the Dark Sky Association to make sure that our lights will be dark sky compliant when we eventually go to construction, whether that's 5 years from now or 20 years from now. I really don't plan on going anywhere. So I want to see this one through for sure. So, there's lots of, and of course, technology will change between the time that, the day we're speaking now until the time we actually go to construction. So as technology changes, all those different compliancy changes, we're on top of that. And we really like to make sure that we hold true to the industry, especially on the, the sustainable side.
Drew, have y'all put any electric charging stations? Is that something that City of Denton?
That is something that we've looked at, electric charging stations, just due to, and we were kind of on board or on the track before the pandemic started with some different solar. They're really nice picnic tables with a solar roof on them, and then it has a charging ports for you to be able to charge your devices. Just due to budget constraints, that's been put on hold, but we have looked into them, yes. Because it's at the time it was $16,000 for a picnic table. So that's pretty expensive picnic table, but it'd be highly used. Yep. And that's a good thing about technology. As the technology grows and gets better, the price actually goes down versus like we're seeing in construction right now with prices going up. So.
Oh, we have a hand raised. I'll allow Katrina to talk.
All right, you can unmute.
Yep, she is.
Okay, I'm looking at this thinking, this really looks like it's set up for baseball, softball tournaments, but not for many other large events. Is there a way to overlap the great lawn space with soccer, football, lacrosse fields that could be multi-use areas instead of just reserved as a great lawn, so that you could hold soccer, football, or lacrosse tournaments here as well as the bat sports tournaments?
So speaking on that, really with that great lawn and what Bill's team has put into really the vision of that great lawn, if you look at and Bill, if you'll scroll down just a little bit for the 4 large baseball, softball fields that are there, those outfields can be used for multi-sports, especially if that's synthetic turf and it's easy to be able, to change sports over really quickly. So those fields are high school size fields. So you're looking at, 380 feet from home plate to outfield fence. And that gives plenty of room to be able to play, lacrosse, rugby. You can put all those different, sleeves in to be able to change the goals out. And so that was our idea also, to be able to do that. You have the 3 fields on the north that soccer really likes to play on natural turf. And then I think I put it in the chat, we're also looking at some room up near Fire Station 7 once that's all final, about where the fire station's there. They're almost done with the fire training. A new police station will go up there with a training facility also, and there's still plenty of room that the city owns that's out of the floodplain there to potentially put what we call multi-sports fields up there also.
And the soccer,
because it looked just like baseball. So I feel like if you communicate that on your plan, that it could be used as multi-sport, that may get more support from other sports as well.
Okay, that's a great idea. Thank you. And then we did just finish our Vela Athletic Complex, which is 4 full-size soccer fields. And those, we have lacrosse and rugby, soccer, football being played on those fields right now at North Lakes, on top of the other 20-something fields we have at North Lakes that are multi-sport.
Good question. Thank you.
Hey, Drew, we've got a question in the Q&A asking, realistically, how soon could all these things be built and ready for use?
I wish I could be able to answer that question. And just to be transparent and really honest with you, we don't know when the next time we'll be able to go to a bond. Really, we're thinking we would obviously need to contribute, funds to build this. We've started to look at partnerships Of course, we're always looking for grants. So ideally, possibly we could get the funding in 5 years and start construction maybe the 6th year. But I can't honestly tell you exactly when we could be able to do that, not knowing when when the next bond will be, if the bond passes, and what the grants will be at that time.
Drew, can I add some flavor to that or some color to the comments? Is
Yes,
that
sir.
I just want everyone who's listening to realize that as fantastic as this plan is and well balanced with nature, active zones, indoor rec, it is part of the park and recreation system. There are other pieces that are needed as well to build trails elsewhere in the community. I know a lot of you are already kind of projecting where I'm going with this, but it's, the Parks and Recreation Department on this bond program is also going to have to compete against other facilities around the city for those dollars. And that's, you've got streets and alleys and sidewalks and police and fire and water systems that need to be maintained as well. So it's a big thing to try to balance the needs of a city, and this is part of it. If we don't have a master plan, we cannot represent what it is that's needed and show a well put together plan. And so it's smart to do the planning that we're doing, but we have to all realize it's going to take some time, and we're going to have to work into the balance of the bigger equation. Is that fair to say, Drew and John?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very fair. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I speak for all of us when I say if we had the money, we'll start tomorrow. It's just soon everybody, we're all excited about the plan. We want it, but it's, when the money becomes available is up to your council and you as voters, of course.
Of course.
Well, do we have any other questions? Well, if we don't have any other questions, I really appreciate everyone's time. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your evening to join us on this. Thank you for your input. And I can put, I don't know if I can.
One last question. They're asking when the plan will be finalized.
Good question.
Let's see. I know we'll be taking this to council this month, and
for input.
For input, and eventual we'll take it back to council for an adoption of the plan. And of course, things could change between now and the time it's constructed. So we would definitely want to adopt the plan, in the next few months. But like I said, little things could change. The details could change. So,
Drew, isn't it fair to say that once it's adopted and you'll be working off of your website to post what the master plan is? Is that
yes,
isn't that correct?
That is fair to say. We would like what we would like to do between now and this time next year is really cut in that loop trail. There's a lot of mesquites and a lot of honey locusts on this property. And we would like to really get that trail established. There's a water line that went in off of All Red Road. So we have a really nice 40-foot buffer there to where we could put a small gravel parking lot so people could start getting out and getting use of this property. And then potentially we'll start putting signs up and saying, baseball fields here, rec center here, outdoor learning pavilion here, as you really get on the property and start just enjoying it as as an open space for now. And obviously it has tons of open space once it does get constructed. So, and the sooner we start planting those trees in the forested areas, the bigger they'll be once this gets started. So.
That also gives you that ability to work with master naturalists, scouts, groups, nature groups that want to contribute and help acquire seedlings and things like that to get this ball rolling. But it takes a commitment like a master plan adopted to give you the authority to go forward. So
Yeah, we joked earlier, my daughter loves planting anything, and we have 8 trees ready to be planted out here. So they started as seed, as little seedlings, and so they're about 10 inches tall, and she's ready to plant them. So
she'll enjoy them the rest of her life then.
yes.
That's great. Thank you everybody for being here. It was good visiting with
It
you
was.
online.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, if that's it, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. We do appreciate all of the input that we get. We do try to incorporate as much as we possibly can. And this whole plan has been morphing a little bit each time that we talk to people and get their feedback. So with that, I think this meeting is going to be concluded. And again, appreciate all your time. Thank you.
Thank you.